Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Consult. I am your host, Sonya Madison, and I have a special co-host today because my usual co-host, Dr. Mark Williams, is unfortunately, or fortunately, we'll see how great this podcast turns out, um, out of town. And so I want to welcome to the Roundtable, Miss Angela Croswell. Angela, how are you?
Hey, Sonia, I'm doing well. How are you?
I know that you are excited to join me, so I am excited that you're excited. Uh, but before we get into our topic today, I just want to give a brief overview of the news for our audience. Well, first and foremost, I'm sure you guys have seen Trump all over the news as it relates to Republicans saying that they are not going to push forward a bipartisan immigration bill just because Trump has asked them not to allow Biden to have this win. So thank you once again. I think we talked earlier this year about the reckoning that is our government. So we're seeing that democracy continue to become destroyed and show its head. And with that and the border issues that are going on, so the Supreme Court recently permitted the federal government, Biden administration, to pretty much change or remove some of the wire bordering that is along the Texas border, the Texas and Mexico border. Texas is an outrage. And the reason why it came to the Supreme Court is because Texas filed an injunction wanting to prevent the federal government from doing so. Supreme Court said no, 5-4 decision. Thank you, Chief Justice Roberts. Always, sometimes, not always, sometimes he comes through on a bipartisan ruling, but him and one of the other justices that the Trump administration appointed has decided that no, federal government overrules when it comes to border security and homeland security. That is their responsibility. And so they have permitted the federal government and Biden to make changes. Now, we've got a lot of states, including Texas, as well as Georgia, unfortunately, a lot of southern states that are wanting to stand with Texas. And Texas has tried to put even more troops, has tried to add more wiring to make it even harder for the federal government to make changes to that. So we still see how that plays out. But again, we've talked about this before, I just feel like the Republicans are really trying to get us to a civil war, trying to get us to separate. And hopefully, with this year and this election, it'll be once again a reminder from the majority of people, because for the most part, the majority of people have voted for a Democratic president for the past several years. Even when Trump won, it was the majority voted for Hillary Clinton. We shall see how that continues to play out. And then the last two, and then we're going to kind of get into our topic. Taylor Swift, who has now have 5, 6, 7-year-olds watching football, has received some kind of backlash, and it's not from her. There have been nude pictures that were posted of her, and they were not true. They weren't accurate. They were artificially intelligence generated AI. And as a result, she has threatened the lawsuit. The federal government intervened because we're talking about millions of followers. We're talking about the weight that are the heavy of the hand that is Taylor Swift. It's funny how sometimes people say, yeah, Jason Kelsey, I think his name. It's either Jason or Travis. Pretty sure. Might be Travis. Whoever she's dating that plays for the
Kelsey.
yes. The people are saying, "Oh, he's put her on the map," but hold on, Taylor Swift has been on the map, and again, it's going to get into our topic, but I feel like for some reason people feel as if you have to dim the woman's light in order to
It's
elevate.
giving Simone Biles for me, and I didn't
Thank
care for that.
you. And even when since you brought it up, because I know during that interview, some people were like, well, give him grace because he's just telling his honest truth. But to me, if your honest truth is that you always feel like you're the catch and that you didn't know, in which everyone knows who this person is, but you're bragging about the fact that you didn't know her and you're in the same industry in terms of sports, I'm thinking that makes you look bad. Like I don't consider you the catch at all in that instance.
I think people are sometimes delusional, and if that's what allows you to function in this world, to the extent that you don't break the law and you're not harming anybody, if it works in your household, I I don't have much to say on that.
Well, I know you often
But I
talk.
know who Simone Biles is, and I don't want any sports, not football, not soccer, nothing.
Even though I do watch gymnastics, I mean, again, this person is the face of the Olympics. So if you
And
watch
have been for a decade.
the game, you know who she is. And I know you wrote a book, Top Shelf Wife. How did you like or dislike, or how did you evaluate how she handled that interview?
I feel like you have to choose your battles. And the best way, a lot of times, for things to be okay and stay okay is to just focus on the truth of your relationship and the truth as you see it. And so if she doesn't allow it to bother her, I feel like she gets the upper hand. And whether or not they had a conversation afterwards, it at that time was not the time for her to address it, because then it looks contentious. It also takes away for him in the male space. It takes away his authority.
Well, and I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, she needs to divorce him. And I can't believe he said that. And I'd imagine they, to your point, have had this conversation. I'm sure she knew, at least from how they moved initially, that maybe he didn't recognize how great she is, because he's claiming, she kind of chased after me and because I am the catch. But what do you even say to the people that are telling her, hey, you need to divorce that guy? Or the people that are telling her, hey, no, I don't think that was the right one for you?
I think, having been a person, I'm married now. I have been divorced. I think, people just need to mind their own business, honestly, because I'm not sure how old Simone Biles is. I'm not sure of her dating history. I'm not sure of the inner workings of their emotional life together. And so I'm not sure of a lot of things to be able to weigh in on this. But if her goal is to find a mate that she likes, find someone that she respects, someone who's on a similar financial footing as her, all of those things, you have to be careful about saying, "Oh, girl, just throw it away," because you just want to escort her into the pool of singleness again. Like, I just don't know about that either.
Is it better to
So
be single and I guess without a guy who kind of degrades you or downgrades you, or is it better to be married?
it depends on how you look at it. It depends on your how you assure yourself in your space. And we all have to decide on that. You know, um, can you assure yourself, and are you sure enough of yourself and your standing in your relationship that it doesn't bother you?
And I imagine
And she's
sometimes.
she's been getting flack. She's been getting flack for her hair. She's been getting flack for her performances from time to time. So she's used to social media, and she's used to Black Twitter and all those things. So this, I would assume because of that, she's built an armor around her life. And so even though she's in the public eye, I'm sure that she self-regulates really well and she's very sure of herself. And so the fact that she can be in that situation and smile through it, and support what's important to her, I think those are the things that are most important.
Well, and I met her some time ago because I know she's probably in her early 20s. I mean, and so and you can probably speak on this a little bit. When you're married, I take it there is a learning curve. There is adjusting, and so maybe she, even with the sport, it probably took her some time to adjust to not only having being assaulted by Larry Nasser and all that went through gymnastics, but then also at the Olympics when she had the twisties and wasn't able to perform her best. And a lot of people, and I know you mentioned Black Twitter, but I think it was just a lot of American people in general was very critical of the fact that she couldn't perform at such a high caliber. She became pretty much an ambassador of mental health. But I imagine that took some time to even get to this space where, man, I can't be my best. I'm supposed to represent the United States and I can't perform. So as she goes through marriage, I'd imagine your advice is also, hey, sometimes you got to lean into what you know, or lean into what your goal is, or lean into something other than presently what you're seeing. And
Yeah, and you can't always lean into self, and because there are higher powers. If you're talking about God, depending on your relationship and your understanding of what marriage is, you may have to lean into the authority of your husband, the authority of God. just all of it. And so we don't, as emotional beings who flow with emotion, we can't always lean into that because it's not always going to end up in the results that we want.
Yeah. And so it might be periods of loneliness, but like you said, you lean into that authority. If you have faith that God is saying, no, this is what I put together.
Because quite honestly, if he looks at that, a lot of times with men, if he looks at that and he gets flack from his own village, he's going to be more compassionate towards her.
I hope so.
He's going to be more, he's going to grow through that experience. And that's what you want, in a relationship. If she has the emotional upper hand, and maybe he feeds into ego too much, maybe he likes to floss, maybe he just likes to aggrandize himself, whatever his motivation, and he may not even know subconsciously, he may not even know. But from the fallout of that, they have an opportunity to grow.
And like I said, I hope so, because I know sometimes we hear stories
Me
about
too.
men that become abusive or, take it out on their family members. So we're all still praying for you, Simone. And then lastly, Trump, first of all, I want to again make sure it's clear. He has already been found liable for the assault. Okay. So this was all, or the harassment, this was all about how the defamation and how much he owes. And so in the lawsuit with E. Jean Carroll, she sued him for defamation because one, she again was able to prove that yes, you did assault her because that's already been decided. But two, when we talk about defamation, we talk about you then publicly telling the world things that are not true, knowing with malice that, hey, I'm trying to hurt and injure her reputation. And she has been requested, I mean, it's been instantly been telling people, not only have I come from this reputable journalist, but now that we have you publicly telling everyone that I'm a liar, the only thing people associate me is with you and not my whole reputation. And so, the jury awarded her $83.3 million. Of course, we've got Trump that's gonna try to make it seem like he can't pay, even though he's got this whole civil suit talking about I'm worth 400 mil, all
No,
this.
but that speaks to the ego of men, that's in some cases the delusionalness of men. And, in a world where there can be a judicial fallout from things, you have to kind of be realistic, and it's snapping people into reality. And so I'm kind of with the judge, like, how much is it going to take for you to learn how to be quiet? I don't know.
What's interesting though, is because again, we often talk about your book and a lot of women's desire to be married, but then we're also seeing that Trump and is being put on this pedestal. I mean, he's likely going to get the Republican nominee for the presidential position. And that not only showcases our leadership, but does that also not speak to the people, particularly the men that are following him? I mean, is this the type of person that you want to marry? And that's why I kind of go back to that. Is it then better not to? If I have to get married, I have to be with someone who is aligning themselves with this type of leader. It's just better for me to stay single.
And if your choice is Trump or nothing, let's go with nothing. But thank God that that's not your choice, you
Well,
know.
you're
And
presenting
so,
people are like some people are just single, so then their choice is nothing or go, I guess
right,
find.
if that's what you want, sure. Like, I'm all for people doing what they want, and finding ways to do what they really want.
Mhm.
And so I'm normally going to land on understanding, like, what is it that you really want? And until you answer that, I don't know that you can find any answer of happiness until you know exactly what you really want. And then you commit to the pride, the pressure, and the potential of pursuing what it is that you want.
All right. And so, and even when you're asking yourself, what do you really want? I would dare be specific. So don't just say, I really want to be married. You might
Oh, for
want to
sure.
find the type of guy that you want, because that, again, it may not present itself. And if that
Well,
doesn't present itself, do you settle for something less, or do you say, well, then maybe I would prefer to just be single?
for me, I believe that, when you petition, in prayer or meditation, you are called to be specific. You know, you're called to know yourself and you're called to be specific. And if that specificity is in line with the will of God, and if that specificity is um, in line with love and peace and the general direction of God, why wouldn't he? You know, why wouldn't he?
Because he may not have built you for that. Because to some degree, you then say, okay, well, I guess I have faith that my creator knows exactly how he wants my life to play out. And if that is not in the cards, then you say, all right, well, I accept that. Or do you say, well, God, come on, I know you can make it happen. What are you doing?
Well, I mean, and it depends on where you fall on destiny versus so it depends on how you fall on destiny and um, your God-given direction. Because you can direct yourself in ways, you can acquire skills, you can practice different things, you can expand. And that's one thing that I love about the guest that's coming on, is that a lot of what she is about, like, is so wonderful for femininity, for understanding your voice, for understanding your body, for being progressive, for being adventurous. And all of the things that I'm listing are kind of ideals from my book. Um, and Galentine's is probably a different concept altogether, but all of those things of what she's about, um, it are the things that you kind of, I feel, and I've written about as those strengths that you need in the pursuit of happiness, either by yourself or with someone else.
Well, with that being said, let's bring on our guest. So our guest today is Stephanie Kursky, and hopefully she'll turn on her video. I'm doing old school today. So but by day, she's a skilled project manager. But what her passion is, and what we're going to talk about today, is being a dance teacher at a local Atlanta studio where she infuses energy, creativity, and sass in all of her classes. She has an upcoming event called Galentine's Day event on February 9th. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But at that event, she plans an evening of fun, laughter, and women empowerment. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining us. So unmute yourself. I know it's like a little new.
Sorry, I was on mute for so long. I'm here.
And you are a fellow University of Tennessee alum, right? Did I get that?
Go
Yes.
Did we get that one right?
Yes.
Okay, UT is in the house. I'm from UT chat.
So I want to start with your passion for dance. Like, first of all, how did you develop it? Why do you have such a passion, and what do you want to do with it?
So I've been doing it all my life from the moment I probably could walk. As a child, I have videos of me performing for my family. And then I moved into gymnastics. You talked a little bit about gymnastics earlier, and started taking ballet to just improve my gymnastics, and fell in love. Loved the performance aspect of it, loved the camaraderie that goes along with it, the friendships that I've made throughout the years. Dabbled a little bit in the professional side, did a little bit of amusement parks. I was on the University of Tennessee dance team, and then kind of took a pause. Adulting just kind of happened, and took a pause from it for a little bit, then got back a little bit into performing. Met an amazing mentor. I call her my dance angel, who kind of really pushed me to explore teaching and just sharing my gift and my craft with other women. Most of my attendees are women, but I do have some men sprinkled in as well. And yeah, I've been doing that for a little over a year now, just really tapping into my creative side and really just building my dance community. So.
Well, our Angela mentioned feminism, and I've had older generations say they believe feminism has
Pause. Angela mentioned femininity, which is not the same necessarily. Continue.
And perhaps we'll have her define that. And then, but my question for you is, a lot of people, not a lot of people, a lot of older generation will say, oh, that kind of ruined relationships. And women trying to empower or be, I guess, equal or better has ruined relationships. Like first of all, what do you feel about femininity? How do you define it? And how do you feel like it works or doesn't work when it comes to relationships?
Okay.
We'll be.
Let me just rephrase and make sure I understand. So femininity or versus like women empowerment ruining in relationships, just to make sure I'm
Feel like
answering.
there's a difference. Articulate the difference. Because I think some people will probably say, oh, femininity is women empowerment. And then some people may say, no, it's completely different.
Yeah. So femininity for me is like really tapping into your soft side. I feel like my heels classes tap into that as well. Just you see a lot of influencers talk about it too, like tapping into my soft side, my soft air. I feel like that is like tapping into your femininity and owning that. There's a power in that, I think, that we have when we do that correctly. And so I think that's when I think of femininity, that's what I think of. When I think of women empowerment, I think a little bit of like we mentioned previously, just like sisterhood, like uplifting each other, fixing each other's crowns, supporting each other, being a shoulder to cry on. I feel like all those are elements when it comes to like empowering each other and women empowerment.
Angela, you want to add, agree?
Sure. I would agree. Femininity is understanding the softness and the power in your softness. It's not just the softness of being silent, it's the softness of being silent so that you know and that you utilize the power when you do speak. Is it the right time? Is it the right tone? Am I approaching this from a way that's acceptable to who I'm talking to, whether I'm talking to another woman, or whether I'm talking to my children or husband? And so that femininity is it's kind of like the softness of, a rose. Yeah, but there's some thorns up under there, and there's some vibrancy with that rose, the color of it, the smell of it, and so forth. Feminism is for me, feminism is a great idea in society. You want to be able to find whatever job that you want. You want to be able to compete for resources equitably. You want those things in society, to help with any type of um, when you find yourself in a position where you need to support yourself, to have a man to buy property. That's not going to work, you
Mhm.
know, and those sorts of things, not being able to drive yourself, all those things that were before the feminist movement, they've been great strides. The question is how do you balance both of those? And we were raised in an era where our parents, as Black women, I don't know your mom, Stephanie, I do know Sonya's, but I don't know if she's a Black woman or not. But, when you have that, that era of the civil rights movement, feminism, the intersection of those two things, and our mothers were out there trying to figure it out, and doing a really good job, like a damn good job um, of that. However, what we did was we put femininity in the back seat since those times. And so you have the birth of, Black girl magic and women's empowerment. That's fine. But is that going to yield us families that are stable? Is that going to lend us to creating spaces where men feel comfortable and we feel comfortable with men? And that's the part that's not being seen. That's
So
the part that we're missing.
in your classes, Stephanie, do you find that you are having to teach them or they're missing that femininity, or do you find that they come in just probably overly eager, ready to strip it all off? Uh,
Uh,
and
yeah, so I deal a lot with people who are kind of doing it for the first time or beginners. So when they come in, I think they know there's a glimmer of that inside them. And I love taking on the responsibility of bringing that out. So they don't come in with that level of confidence and sensuality or softness or femininity, but they know they have it in them or want to grow that in them. I think some people sometimes cringe when they think about moving in heels and body rolls and hair whips and things of that nature. Um, but they're curious and they want to feel empowered when they're doing movement of that nature. I mean, I think everyone wants, I personally believe everyone wants to feel like a baddie at some point. And I feel like that kind of taps into that era because a lot of us are so hard on ourselves. I mean, constantly criticizing ourselves when we look in the mirror, looking on social media, comparing ourselves, which is the thief of joy. And so I think there's an opportunity when they come in to build that confidence, tap into that feminine energy and their sensuality. So they come to me ready to learn, ready to open up and figure out what that looks like for them.
And have you gotten any criticism? Because I imagine, I know that you're not an exotic dancer or would never, would not classify yourself as that. But nonetheless, I imagine there may be people that criticize, whether on social media or like, using dance as a profession. What do you say to that?
Oh, criticize using dance as a profession?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess my algorithm's great and everyone who follows me are dancers. So
As it should be. Like, who are those people? I don't know who those people are.
What did you say?
It's like, who are those people? I don't know who those people are.
I don't know those
Hey,
people.
criticize Simone Biles, you criticize you already.
Now, I mean, I'm still like growing my brand and growing my following. So I'm sure like as the numbers multiply, I will get those negative comments. I get a lot of lurkers, I feel like, where it's like 4,000 views, 100 likes. So like they're looking, but they're not talking or they're not saying anything. So I really don't know if I can speak to that specifically. But I mean, I get a lot of positive feedback at this point in my career when it comes to it. And like I said, and maybe that's just because I have a lot of dancers that I follow that follow me. So we're all a very encouraging environment, and really just enjoy expressing ourselves through dance.
Well, I mean, that's actually great. So then during the classes, because again, we talked about the sisterhood and the camaraderie, how are you encouraging that? Because again, I feel like when we talked about the Simone or the Taylor Swift, it is often us as women having to then come and not having to, but we do step in and say, "Oh, no, no, wait, this is below the belt." I mean, unfortunately, a lot of women are telling Simone, "Hey, no, this isn't the guy for you." But nonetheless, we come in and we try to cover women that we want to make sure are protected and safe. So, in your class, particularly when someone is shy or when someone feels uncomfortable, how do you use other women or how the other women kind of come together and support?
Yeah, so I think it's all about setting the tone for the class. I've definitely been to some classes where the focus is more on, I would say, prepping for an audition or getting ready for a job. And the classes that I run are for people who want to do it for fun, people who want to tap into their confidence, people who want to figure out who that person is, who that baddie is inside. Um, so the way I foster that is encouragement. I mean, when I have that girl in the back, I'm going to notice you. And I've definitely gotten that feedback before where it's like, she sees me. I'm not, just because you're in the back hiding doesn't mean I'm not going to notice that body roll. I'm not going to notice that snap, that look, that hair flip. So I do take the time to really pay attention to everyone in my class, foster encouragement. And I think towards the end of the class, when we start going like in groups and stuff, then people are encouraging as well. Girl, I see you. Get it. We're filming, we're getting excited. So by setting that tone throughout the class, the hooting and the hollering and the yelling for each other, that continues throughout. And I think people enjoy the class more when I set that kind of tone.
And are there friendships being made during? I mean, do you usually see the regulars come back, or do you usually?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I started teaching about a year or so ago, and I definitely have like this lovely group of girls, my dance community, I like to call them my strut community. Obviously they come, religiously every Monday, which I'm so grateful for. But we've definitely done things outside of the studio, whether it's going to see a musical or another dance performance from a local choreographer, or sometimes I'll like post in my little strut group, hey, I'm going to go take this class on Wednesday if anyone wants to join me. I think sometimes it is a little nerve wracking for people to take a class from someone they've never taken from before. So it's been great to kind of create this community where we can kind of reach out to each other and try, there's this LA choreographer coming in. We've seen them on Instagram. They're amazing. Like, oh, do we want to step in together? So yes, the community is there because you have like that support system from each other. And it builds your confidence. When you look to the right and you see your girl that you see every Monday, just growing with you in dance, it's really exciting. So.
And
Yeah,
and
a lot of what you speak to is in my book, The Top Shelf Wife. It's the book is separated into 5 areas: nurturing yourself, a husband, family, a plan, and then the community. And so building that community of women is so important because through nurturing other women, is where you begin to learn how to have those words of assurance for yourself and for someone else. And those are the things that, being able to give a compliment, being able to accept a compliment, that exchange of reciprocity within a stressful situation, like you're dancing in front of someone. This is the move that I didn't get right the first time, but then when you finally get it right, there are some hurdles that you're emotionally actually breaking when you are venturing into those new pockets of your life. And so, that like listening to you talk about it, I'm listening, don't get me wrong, but in my mind, like I've got a checklist of all the points in the book that are being hit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wonder, because you said men are in your class, do men have femininity or is that exclusive?
Yes, they do.
And
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. You got it.
Bringing back Simone Biles and her husband, I don't even know the man's name, but he's lacking in that, which is why he made the comment that like that's why he comes off how he comes off. Does that make sense? Like he's missing a compassion component in how he's talking, and that's like a nurturing type thing that he needs to hopefully maybe tap into. So they do.
well, and so what does that look like? Because you mentioned compassion. What else, particularly as you're bringing it out in the dance, like what are you asking them to access in terms of when you say, give me that femininity energy from a man?
Oh, so I have sprinkles of men that come in. I will say that's not my majority of my clientele. They're always welcome. The door is always open. Um, they I honestly don't have to pull it out from the men that often. The ones that are showing up to heels class are ready to tap into their energy
They're over tapped.
more than the women, right? So that's just being honest. Like they sometimes, I mean, they're killing it, like killing the game, and I'm like, how y'all doing that better than me? Like that's amazing. So I will say that I haven't had to hone that part of my instructor side too often, because when they're stepping into heels class, they're ready to tap into that feminine energy. We do offer the opportunity. Heels are optional, so I know that's sometimes intimidating. So sometimes the guys will just come and they won't necessarily wear heels in the beginning, so they'll keep their sneaks on, or they'll kind of adapt the choreography a little bit to kind of give a little bit of masculine edge to it, but not necessarily do the choreo like straight up like I'm doing it with like all the sass. So.
And again, I imagine there's a thin line, but there should be a line, at least from my perspective, but you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, between, for men, that femininity and flamboyancy. Like, and so I guess because we laugh and joke, but then there are men that come in just flamboyant. And I don't know if you're saying the two are the same, but is there a difference? Is there a line between the two? And then what is it that we're meaning when we're saying for a man femininity versus masculinity?
And I would wonder, to even answer that question, what percentage of the men who do show up, are they showing up with their female partner, or are they showing up as in a performance mindset, or are they showing up as a homosexual male? Like the men that you're getting, I think those 3 different classes of or segments of men make a difference.
So I think they come in for performance. I will say I don't ask their sexuality, so I could
For sure. HIPAA.
what their sexuality is. But yeah, they come in for performance. Like they're ready to tap into a different side, like than the traditional like jazz or hip hop. I would say when I think of the word flamboyant, like, I think of it as like, like showy or, but I feel like that's part of it. Like I feel like you can be feminine, right? But then I can also have a flamboyant class where I'm showy and extravagant and extra and performing it, right? Am I taking it just to like develop my technique, or am I taking it because I want to work on my performance aspect? I think that flamboyant comes in for me like as being that showy performance side that you're working on. So I don't think, and I don't know if you were trying to ask that word in like a negative context, but I think it's okay to be extra in dance.
No, I mean, because again, dance is performance. So,
Yeah.
but we're also talking about the femininity of just women in general, in and outside of performing. And so, when we're tapping into it for men, again, there is a tap in to be extra, or is there a tap in? Okay, I'm gonna tap into femininity, not necessarily being the extra part, unless you're saying some of that femininity is just that confidence, and you need to be extra to exude that confidence.
I kind of put it, let me try to articulate this well. I kind of put it on the same side of like when you think of like corporate America, and I have to be 10 times better than someone that doesn't look like me for the same job. Okay. So when I apply that, when I think about dance class and think of men in the dance class, I think they come 10 times better, which I'm like, get it? It's so good because I feel like there's that underlying pressure. Like I try not to put that in my class, but I feel like they bring that performance, that flamboyancy, that to the class because typically that class is full of women. So I think that kind of explains to me why they come so magnificent.
And I think too that there has to be a certain type of confidence with um, the flow of motion, which is highly feminine. Most men are very, I don't mean personality wise, but just body movement wise, very square, not so, you know, um, flowy. So I think for a man to even come to that class, they have to have a certain level of confidence with their like their flow of their body.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah,
that's
men
cool.
usually walk in with that excuse me, I'm sorry. Men usually walk in with that confidence, and I said
Hmm.
women, I usually pull it out of them. I think I could definitely say that as a blanket statement for the most part. Mm.
So now, does a woman have masculine energy? Should we tap into it every now and then, or is that something we should not, you know? Okay, yeah. So then what
I
is
think we live in that space like so much because of feminism and because of like she said, like women have come to be like such badasses at work. Like we are very, our natural ability to organize, our natural ability to move forward and problem solve as nurturers, our natural abilities used in corporate settings and capitalism have allowed us to really shine. But on the flip side of that, so we're natural, and that's the thing. That's the comment from what I heard. That's the comment that Stephanie made, is that we're kind of in our masculine when we're there, like we're unsure, we're, we may be a little bit possibly standoffish, but we have to get into that, like that flow. We have to get into that persona of softness and go with it and all of that stuff that has to be pulled out. Like we have to say it's okay. And I want you to do that. Like I want you to be silly. I want you to laugh at yourself. It's okay. Nobody's going to say anything negative because if I were there, I've been to one, not yours in particular. I'm not a dancer. Not like that, not choreographed. Now I do my moves, but choreographed with other people, child, no. So you have to be okay with that. And you have to not take yourself so seriously. And to survive and to do well, women have been called to take themselves very seriously.
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that just piggybacks on where I talk about having to pull that out of the women when they attend classes because we are dealing with that every day. Like I tell my husband all the time, at my job, I move like a man. Like, and like I do, like, and that's threatening sometimes. I deal with a lot of stuff because I move what quote unquote like a man. And we have such this strong interior that we have, or exterior that we have to have um in order to hold our own, I think, in corporate America. So the dance side of it for me, at least, and I believe the people that attend, like, is a release. It's that opportunity to tap into that side because you've been, at war all day, with the masculine energy. And then just to piggyback to that's agreeing with you, Angela, but then to talk a little bit more like just on the dance side, don't get me wrong, in heels, I mean, we're playing Megan, I'm playing Cardi, like I feel like there's a little bit of masculine energy there, the way they talk, the way they rap, the things they talk about. So I have my slow and sensual, side, but then we also, we get what I like to call grindy with it, like
And there's an idea of like dark femininity, which when you think of like strippers, which I know that's not, or exotic dancers, and I know that's not what this is, but there is a type of dark femininity that is that tightrope walk between the masculine and feminine.
Well, and I
Mhm.
know Iyanla Van Zandt says that she feels like women are too masculine, and that's the problem oftentimes in relationships is that there's just too much masculine energy. And so, and I want to make sure, at least for our viewers, I know we've talked about for femininity, there's a level of confidence, but what are you saying the difference between masculine and feminine energy?
Masculine, do you want to go? I only started talking.
You got it.
You look like you were thinking first. So let me go first and then you follow up. Would be great. So for me, like the masculine normally is going to be most competitive when you think of survival of the fittest. So they're going to have a specific plan of action when most women are looking for husbands and someone that they can respect as a husband, you want somebody with a plan. And so that generally is a masculine type quality. Um, and when you are talking about someone assertive, definitely physical strength and stamina. Um, most of those things are considered masculine. Femininity normally is the difference in the flow of positive energy. It's going to be, it's going to draw people to you. It's going to generally bring life, be very creative, and those things. And granted, there's overlap. I wouldn't, it's a wonderful thing to see a man who's very creative in his space and then in his program and what he's about and his plan for his family, and he's adventurous and all of those things. So there's overlap between the two of them, but how do you reconcile them being together? And that's the thing. How do you allow them to be in the same space and you learn how to hold space for each other? I'm holding space for you in your femininity. And then as a woman, I'm expecting you to perform in your space in masculinity. And I hope
Yeah,
that answered the question.
yeah, I don't know if I can top that. I think it was really good. I think I like how you kind of tapped on like um having both dynamics of that at the same time or just different variables of that based on the situation. And I feel like that's something that's like with me and my husband, like there's times where like if you want to put masculinity with like leadership or like a plan and what that looks like my husband does that really well, but then there's times when he knows there's areas that I might have a little more expertise, so he lets me lead and be that person in that particular area, so I'm not saying my husband is tapping into his feminine energy, but he lets me have a little bit of those masculine moments where I feel like it's a good balance for us. So I do think it's healthy to understand what those are, but then still have, like I said, a good balance between the two.
Yeah. And one of the marks of a good leader, I don't care if you're talking about corporate or in a household, is the ability to listen and take in what your people are saying and then apply that to the plan moving forward. And so, my husband as well, is one of the things that is like, he's very masculine, like military masculine, a leader in his job masculine. And so it was important for me dating to understand, like, how does he listen to me? Does he, because I don't expect him to be highly feminine. Like Sonya knows my husband. Now, I don't think he would, in an interview say the things that we've heard some husbands say, but um, but the expectation that he's going to lead is there. And also the allowance of him um, listening to what I have to say and then applying that, parts of it that he can, parts of it that he feels are advantageous for our family moving forward, he puts those in place. And so that balance that Stephanie talked about, you have to understand that. I feel you have to understand that while you're looking and while you're dating, you know, to really see, like, I think, I hate to keep bringing up poor little Simone, but she's amazing. It doesn't seem as though they dated a long time. And so that may be an area that she either maybe didn't know to look into, or maybe opportunities didn't present themselves for her to actually see, like, how does he lend himself to my voice? And that's the thing that empowers us within a household or relationship with a leader man, is the fact that he does listen, he does value the femininity support that we give.
I imagine when you're in your 20s versus in your 30s and 40s, you may see different things or look for different things in mates. So your point, when you're younger, you may not recognize or get those specific details of what should my mate look like.
And it could be, I feel like it could be an age factor, but it could also be a culture factor. When you look at other cultures, the moms do a much more intentional job of teaching marriage. Like they're teaching, and the families do a lot. They're more included in the vetting process of wives and husbands. Our culture, American Black culture, that's not normally the case. We don't normally have to feel like our parents or family are going to choose our person. We have so many situations where it's like, yeah, I dated him and we're getting married, and that's kind of that's it. Like, no other family, nobody else gets to weigh in. And so you do leave yourself open for not knowing those things, because we aren't really taught. We're taught to compete. We're taught to get scholarships. We're taught to go to college. We're taught to do well. We're taught to be independent. We're taught a lot of things, and Sonya knows my mom. It wasn't though, and she's not alone. When I talk to other women, it's the same thing. Like, we're not taught how to date, and we're not really taught how to be wives. And, it would be interesting to hear, I don't know, Stephanie, your background, but, does that ring true for you?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't taught how to be a wife, but I don't at the same time think it's for everyone. Like
No,
yeah,
and
so
thank you for
I
saying that. And thank you for saying that,
yeah,
because, that's kind of implied in, if that's what you want.
yeah. So I don't think I feel like there was like a missed opportunity there. I do like the idea that once it's like, yes, I'm ready to find a mate, and then there's a little more open dialogue about choosing that mate. I think I did a good job, but like it'd be like, okay, like, and I think that happens naturally though. I mean, I don't know how close you are with your parents, but like, my mom, like, she knew who I was dating, the ups, the downs, all that stuff. So I think it like organically happened. You like choose, your mom's gonna be the first one to tell you like that person ain't for you. So I think as far as finding a mate, that was definitely there. The wife side of it too. I mean, now that I am a wife, even though I said it's not for everyone, I mean, my parents have been married for 40 plus years. So I think I just had an inherent example of what that might look like. And they talk about the statistics and single parents. I mean, some people might not know how to teach that to their child, if they've never had that or never had a successful marriage or what that looks like. So it's a lot of pressure. Being a parent is a lot of pressure. I am child free by choice. I I don't know how parents do it. It's a lot.
Social media presents a different challenge when it comes to dating and raising kids. But I want to make sure we also talk about Valentine's Day. And I think this is part of why Valentine's Day is important, and because it gives opportunities for us to have these conversations. So why did you want to put on a Valentine's Day event, and what is it that you would like to get out of it?
So I do teach locally at a studio, but then I also do parties. So girls' night out, birthdays, bachelorettes, where you get your crew together. We rent out an entire studio and we strut. Like we have a sexy heels dance class where we'll record it. You'll have your highlight reel so your IG can live its best life. So I've done a couple parties, here and there. And so I just wanted to this is my first time kind of organizing an event where it wasn't like someone like Jesse's party, right? It was like anyone can come and open to the public. Yeah, like I was just kind of wanting to offer something with a little bit more spice, like outside of just like taking class and sometimes I feel like the pressures that come along with that, hobby. Dance is like one of the only hobbies where people put so much pressure on themselves, to be perfect. And I want to try to alleviate that a little bit. So I was like, I'm going to do Galentine's, a heels dance experience. So there'll be free flowing champagne. So it'll be loose as a goose. You'll have a good time. Have some
Confidence sometimes. Give you that liquid courage sometimes, right?
As soon as you walk in the door, girl, I got you. The bubble go flowing, have some little niblets. I'm gonna have a couple vendors there, a cosmetic vendor, a sex toy vendor. Okay. And then we get into the meat and potatoes. We're gonna have a class. We're gonna warm up. We're gonna strut across the floor. I mentioned heels are optional. And then we're gonna learn a sexy, sassy, slow dance. I always get the question like, I'm not a dancer. I don't have experience. This is for my first timers. And I think it's a great opportunity. Like, it's very hard, I think, for someone to say, I'm going to go to this Monday night class by myself and just figure it out and walk in the door blind, right? But this, I feel like, gives you the opportunity to grab your homegirl and say, hey, we're going to try this. And we're going to go do it with some bubbly inside of us, right? And so it's just kind of breaking that barrier to get a feel for what a class would feel like, but in a more like party atmosphere. It's February 9th.
So I know sometimes people will say, oh, Valentine's Day, that's just try to revamp Valentine's Day for all the single people who don't have relationships and blah, blah, blah. But what would you say to people that would be critical of doing a Galentine's Day or doing something that excludes, I guess, like intimate men or relationships or something like that?
So I mean, like, there's just sometimes there's things I want to do with my girls, and I think that's okay. Like, I'm gonna give a good example. We are trying to make it quick. I know we're running a little bit out of time, but we were going to Vegas, and you could get like an Airbnb experience looking over the Vegas Strip on the top of like a canyon with like a little picnic, and they tried to make it sound like super romantic with like candles and da 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 da. And so me and my homegirls were going to Vegas, and I'm like, well, why don't we do that? That looks fun. And one of my girls was like, I ain't got a man. I don't even want to be reminded I don't have a man. And I was like, yeah, but I just want to do that with my girls. Like, let's toast it up on top of a canyon overlooking, I don't think there's a problem with that. And I think it's sad that we sometimes try to categorize certain activities and things that like has to be a man there. Like, nah, I sometimes have more fun with my girls. Like, so I don't issue with saying, hey, you know what, this year, like, I'm gonna kick it with the people that love me, the people that support me, the people that I'm gonna have a little bit of fun with. And I think that's okay.
No, I mean, I agree. Because again, we have these conversations and we can share, stories, share lessons, share, what we're going through without feeling, hopefully, judgment. But I know, like you said, sometimes we do feel like we have to compete with each other, but maybe even dismantling that, like, okay, no, we don't. We can all love on each other. We can all empower each other. Both of you are married. And so both of you are like, yeah, I can do a Valentine's and a Galentine's. It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I know, like, Angela, you mentioned earlier, you know, the Black girl magic and some of these phrases that a lot of people have taken to twist as in, oh no, that means Black men aren't doing what they're supposed to do, or we're just trying to make sure women get elevated, even if that's the price of men. But I mean, again, to your point, it's just a perspective. Like, don't look at it that way unless you're just trying to find a way to criticize women coming together for the purpose of supporting and loving on each other.
Yeah, and I feel like women come together. If you have a community, and you are open to people, like you're just naturally an open-hearted person, like you're generally going to have women groups. Like you're going to build community amongst women. And I don't think there's a problem with that. Like I mean, I'm gonna be going this afternoon to one of my girlfriend's birthdays at 6 o'clock, and that's all well and good, um, period, stop, but I also see, even in Stephanie's comment, is that sometimes you do have women friends who do want relationship with men. And so, that's the thing that it's like, how do we, as married people, as single people or whatever, how do we encourage them? Like, how do we direct them if that's what they want? If they don't want it, fine. I'm all for it. But, as a culture, how do we connect people who, hey, how do we connect people who do want that connection, and do want those relationships with partners and husbands?
Yes, and I know we're running out of time, so I do want to make sure, Stephanie and Angela, if there is some last minute, foods for thoughts or something that you like to share, give you 2 seconds to do so. But otherwise, thank you guys so much. But is there anything lastly you want to share, Stephanie, as it relates to your Galentine's Day event or as it relates to sisterhood? And same to you, Angela.
Sure, yes. Apologies. I had to switch microphones very quickly. Yeah, so thanks again for having me. Looking forward to the upcoming event. As mentioned, it's going to be a vibe, confidence, sisterhood, women empowerment, sexiness, with a little bit of bubbly sprinkled in. So appreciate y'all. February 9th, 8 o'clock. Strut with Steph is my IG. The link is in the bio. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me. And just thanks again for allowing me to have this conversation with you lovely ladies this morning.
Thank you for joining us.
It was very nice to meet you. And I guess I would say in closing, just whatever the life that you want, just go for it. Like, as early as you can figure that out in life, the better, and go for it. Like no holds barred, jump in.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. So, Angela, I want to thank you so much for agreeing to co-host for me with me today.
Anytime.
Hopefully this was, not harmful. Pain.
Well, I'm sure some of your viewers, I don't know who, but I'm sure some of them miss Mark. So hopefully he'll be in attendance next time.
No, they love this feminine, soft energy that has exuded all through the podcast today.
Soak it in. Soak it in.
And to our viewers, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can catch us every Saturday at 11 a.m. Central Time, Eastern Time. I don't know why I'm butchering this. 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. You can also catch us on your favorite podcast platform. And you can go check us out on some of those YouTube videos. We would love to get some more viewership there. But until next Saturday, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
What is it you're doing?